So I am going to call this meeting to order.
That's what we worry about all the time.
And we're gonna start with the consent agenda. So we're gonna look at the previous minute, oh, sorry. You good? Okay. We're gonna start with the previous minutes and, the policies. So I'm gonna split those up. Any conversation around the previous minutes? And if there is none, I would entertain a motion. Devin has made a motion to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And aye. Next is the policy reading of the first read of the student attendance admission of non-resident tuition students, K-12. I have a comment on this one, on the policy. Under the, if I look on.
This one.
Yep, exactly. The first section of adding.
Can you say the number one more time so I'm with you?
It's F21, the student attendance is the first one. In the first block of red text, which is the change, it says a student may be excused from compulsory attendance if the student is mentally or physically unable to attend. I was wondering if maybe language around as determined by a medical professional. So just kind of who's determining whether they're unable to attend as a result of mental or physical unable to attend.
Rachel, do you happen to remember, or Beth or me, if this was language that came specifically out of statute around, was it statute?
No, the
I know,
statute
it came
looks like
from
it's on the
the
section above.
The model policy.
Yeah, the model
Oh,
policy.
okay.
I'm pretty sure it came from the
So
model
we
policy.
had this conversation at
Yeah.
central
Yeah.
office about, or at our leadership team talking about that idea of what's excused and unexcused, and the team had the conversation about we should, to be consistent, this was written with the draft policy language, so they wanted to stick with that, but we could bring it back if that's
I mean,
something
I
you
just
want to do.
feel like it's not specifies on who makes that determination. So if you have, it basically says you may be excused from compulsory attendance and if you have somebody who's just making that determination, that's not.
Well, I think during COVID,
We didn't always have a doctor.
No, for sure.
So I think it would depend on the circumstances, and if it were several days, I think that you would probably ask for, there are certain students I've said you need to be excused from Emma, or a doctor, if it's
Right,
prolonged.
that's what I'm, so is
Yeah, I
it
think it's like-
specified?
Well, but I think in practice, if it's beyond a certain number of
Yeah.
days absence,
In the
then they start
procedure.
putting those things in place, like
Yeah.
if you're going to be out,
Right.
you need a doctor's note
Okay,
or
so
a
that,
nurse
so
needs
we
to
catch
approve
it somewhere, right?
We catch
Yes.
it,
Okay,
yeah.
Yes.
fine,
But
Yes.
the other piece probably, I think that to avoid putting it there is a lot of times kids will be sick
Yeah,
and the doctor won't see them. Or
Right.
it's not
Right.
feasible
With
for them to go to
COVID or the
doctors
flu, or they
right.
don't want them.
right, I see what you're saying. Okay. Okay, yep, that was my only thing. And then the second read, I'm fine. Anybody else have any comments or conversation? If there are none, I would entertain a motion for the first reads and the second reads of the policy.
I'll make the motion.
Mort has made the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Agenda preview and prioritization. Do we need to move anything?
Heather, I think that you are, actually we've already, was it tonight that you need to go to your next meeting?
I do have another meeting, but they know that I'll be late, so whatever works.
So you're okay?
Okay.
So I'm probably just gonna move Heather up, maybe right after public comment. She's in my section of the board
Oh,
report,
okay.
if we can move her up, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that brings us to school spotlight.
I am
Kelly?
realizing that Kelly is not here, so I just want to acknowledge that we had an error in the time.
Oh,
So I
right.
have a feeling Kelly probably also thinks it's 6.
It's 6
Oh,
o'clock.
No, hold on. There was a conflict that came, I just remembered.
Okay.
She could not make it tonight. There was a conflict,
Okay,
that came up last night.
okay. So we're gonna move on to public comment. Is there any public in Zoom? No? Okay.
Nope.
Moving on. Financial business, Morgan, you're up.
The financial update through May went out to you by email yesterday. Happy to try to answer any questions on that. With a lot of caveats, I'm anticipating that we'll be somewhere around $500,000 to the good at the end of the year. The caveats are that this is our first year on this financial software system, as we've complained about many times before, and we're not really sure that it knows how to calculate salaries to the end of the year. So we will find that out once we actually run a bunch of payrolls on June 24th.
And the changes in the lines, or not the lines, I should say, the changes in the values for the special ed lines is due to the change in funding from the SU versus district, correct?
For next year's budget, for this year, if we do any changes in expenses, it is due to the time studies coming out. So when we hire somebody, principal will say they're 100% special ed, and then when we get those 2 time studies throughout the year, it might come back that they're only 80% special ed, and so we have to adjust their payment, and we do that at the end of the year.
At the end of the year, because there was some pretty big differentials.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine, okay.
So those may move, but they will not change the overall expenses, it just moves it from one section to another.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions about the financials budget? Okay.
And I have one action item, and it's related to the tax anticipation note that we've been getting every year. And for new folks or folks who don't have it committed to memory, what this allows us to do is to go out and borrow money on July 1st in order to make payroll for those first 3 or so months before state aid starts to kick in. It also provides a cushion if one of our towns files their grant list late, we might get state aid late, or if there's an issue at the state level with getting funding
Right.
on their targets, we have the ability to borrow money. Do you want me to read the motion out, as I'm hoping you'll?
So we
Pass it.
need I have it. Who's that? I know, it's like right here.
I got
A motion to authorize the chair to sign on the board's behalf, the tax revenue anticipation note and related documents, including the borrowing resolution and tax certificate, for straight line of credit not to exceed $2,335,000 with Community Bank. Do I have a motion, or if there's any questions or clarity around that?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Go for it.
Tag. Sarah's doing the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
So I'll track you down for signatures
Yep.
once we get the final docs.
And I will be more free than I am right now.
That's all I have.
That's all you have? Okay. So Lynn, and we'll start with Heather's portion.
Okay, thank you. I sent for access to,
Was I supposed to send that to Morgan?
I shared it with Morgan too.
It was here somewhere.
Or if you want, I can log in to the Zoom.
Nope, I just need to.
There you are. Awesome, thank you. Oh, look at that, so pretty. Okay, so I'm here for 2 parts. The first part is to kind of go in more in depth about the Vermont Youth Project. So I've got some background information and then a little bit of information on this year's data. Next slide, please. Okay. So the Vermont Youth Project, as I believe most of you are aware, we started in fall of 2019. It came to us as an adaptation of a 20-plus year positive youth development project that was created in Iceland. They went from having about 80% or so substance rate use rates among their youth to 5 per year. And they shut down almost all their substance rehabilitation facilities. And what they did that was so different from most programs is it started with a survey, asking the students, what do you want? This is your community, you live here. What would make you have a sense of belonging, be fulfilled, give you a sense of purpose, give you something to do? And then they had community meetings based on the results, and then the government started putting money into, students said that they wanted this, so let's build this. A lot of youth centers were built, funds for recreational activities to supplement what parents may not have been able to afford themselves. So they continuously do that, and they're seeing incredibly low rates of substance use. As we know, substance use tends to be a replacement for something, connection, things to do. And then in Finland, they've been doing a lot of work around providing youth voice within their government. So they actually have elected youth who sit on committees, and their government's not allowed to pass any policies that has any influence on the future without consulting the youth council. So Vermont After School has been spearheading this program, and they've been kind of blending some of those and thinking in terms of how to create a long-term project that is personalized to every community, because programs that are take it and use it and this is how we prescribe it don't tend to work very well because we all live differently, even just a few miles away. So that was one of the amazing things with learning this program, was it's taking data from students and it's community driven, and we have 5 communities within the state doing it, and we're all doing something different. It's personalized, and there's a sense of agency from the community that are participating in it.
When you say communities, you mean like region or literally district?
So it's located, so for us, we are, in RSU, we have 2 communities doing it. So we have Enosburg and Richford.
Okay.
And the surveys are grades 7 through 12, and that's because the other 3 communities have their scores are 7 through 12, so they wanted to be able to, when they look at statewide data, be able to compare like the same ages, same grade levels. So Enosburg and Richford, we have a lot of shared coalition members in terms of community partners, like the Vermont Agency, the Vermont Department of Health, the Tobacco Prevention Coalition, Franklin County Caring Communities, those are shared coalition partners. But then we have Enosburg will have like the rec director and school members, SAP counselors, and then Richford will have kind of the mirror people within their community. Sometimes we have collaborated in the past of like joint efforts with some of the work. We've done parenting caregiver workshops that was open to everybody. But some of the more specific strategies are within this Richford community and Enosburg community. And then MVU is another school participating in it. So the primary focus is Swanton, but it kind of trickles out to the sending communities as well. And then there's Fairhaven and Rutland. Yes, that's the 5 grades doing it.
So is it, and just to refresh my memory, because it's been a while, so this was fall 2019, right before the pandemic. And we
Yes.
started a 5-year pilot project,
Yes.
and we have 2 of the 5 towns in the state who are piloting this,
Yes.
correct?
Yes. So we're the first, Vermont's the first state in the US to take on this project. Planet Youth, like I said, adapted it for our state so that we could personalize it more, but it's actually been used in nearly 40 countries in the world. And everybody's seeing positive results because it's really holistic community building is really what it is. It's not, like they like to give the analogy of a lot of positive youth development stuff, anti-substance use works is like just say no, drugs are bad for you, build your resilience, and this methodology is you shouldn't have to build your resilience if your community has some of the stuff that you're looking for. I have some more of the slides, like community centers and youth centers are very much what a lot of the youth are asking for. Like just different opportunities to be connected. If you can go to the next slide, please. So the survey is about 71 questions long. Students are able to opt out. We did it in October 19 and October 19 and October 20. We did end up, because of various factors, we didn't do it this year until February, so it's a little bit later. So that's when I've been going through the data, I have a wonder of how much of a difference in some of the results are based on the time of year. But that's part of like the coalition meeting and like working with the community members and the students with the data of like unpacking the why of the results. Because it's not for any one body to like make projections on what these answers are, but it's really helping to develop a story. So we look at these 5 different protective factor domains. The questions are around community, they're around family, school, third space, and if you're not familiar with that term, it's any space that a youth might be that's outside of home and outside of school. And then individual peer groups. And the questions are asked multiple ways to try to help get to the root of like what the questions are getting after. It's really about perception too, like this is their reality, this is their perception, which is kind of one of the conversations too of, you know, we maybe as adults have our feeling and our truth within our community, and we might think that we provide X, Y, and Z for students. But if youth are saying the opposite, you know, that's part of the conversation is like, you know, maybe we just, maybe some of the work that we do is just around advertising. You know, maybe it's there, but we just have to advertise. So we have 3 years of data, please. Mine doesn't move and his moves. It's throwing me. So with the data, we've been using that to support various projects within Enosburg-Richford, the community center in Enosburg, building the recreation department in Richford, and we've got the youth councils, and there was a presentation last month with one of the youth councils. Really, the Enosburg Youth Council is very much focused on having a go-to space within the community that they can rely on. And that kind of came about partly because the community center isn't ready for that. Like they really wanted to help the Enosburg Community Center, but the physical building wasn't ready for like a single, it's just not ready to be open. Richford's youth council's building up some of the stuff in the park at Davis Park, and they're doing a a cheese run. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but it does actually involve cheese. And it's not a metaphor. Yes.
I like it better.
It really sounds uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Just but. Anyway, I'm not a runner, so maybe, yeah. So we've brought, I've personally brought a panel of youth, teens who've worked in the LEAPS program to be presenters at the Vermont Council on Rural Development and their Leadership Summit in August, and we're looking into maybe doing that again this year with our youth council staff. Either they might be panelists perhaps, but or at least to the Leadership Summit's doing a lot of work around providing opportunities for young people to learn about leadership in the state, and the state which is done in collaboration with the Vermont Youth Project has created a youth council so that there's a panel of Vermont youth who will help provide counsel for the governor. So they're building that. We did a caregiver education series a year ago. We're looking into expanding that again this year. The idea behind that is just to be a safe space for adults to come together and talk about parenting, because it's challenging. Doesn't matter your skill set. And sometimes it's just really nice to connect with other people and not feel isolated. Done a lot of work around bringing youth into conversations around community development building, because we're working on Enosburg and Richford both have some really wonderful community plans going on. So just making sure that we're talking to the young people, the different generations about, so what is this going to feel like for everybody within our community. It's also opened up opportunities for talking with some of our human service partners, and United Way has been a very big one in this, of just kind of part of supporting everybody is making sure that we have services within these communities as well, because St. Albans is not accessible to everybody. So either how do we make transportation to those services more accessible, or how do we get those services to us? Then the data has also been used around the pandemic response planning, and this last one is not specific to the Vermont Youth Project, but it's partly why the Vermont Youth Project, I pitched it to this SU a few years ago, was because this SU was doing so much work around integrating youth voice with there's the Portrait of a Graduate, there's other work that we're doing. We're having authentic youth leadership at the table. So it's just, it's happening kind of separate, but there's been opportunities for partnership and shared information between initiatives of individuals within our supervisory union and some of the stuff the coalition is gleaning at the state level. So it's been really great. This project is being watched very closely by the Vermont Department of Health. It's very possible that it's going to become more of a statewide initiative, and it has opened us up for some grants. Last year we got $13,000 from United Way to expand the Richford Junior Senior High School summer camp, and that's allowed us to do a lot of service work last year. We had the youth council funds so that the students can work with their peers on projects that they develop and they implement. United Way gave us a grant again this year to expand the Enosburg Falls Middle High School summer camp. And I'll talk about that a little later, but our summer camps are bursting at the seams, and it's awesome. And it was also used to inform some need for the 21C application for Richford Junior Senior High School, which we recently received, which funds their summer and after school program for the next 5 years.
Nice.
so that's a bit of the background. You could go on, please, and then, so what have we learned so far? Okay. This slide and the next one has just a lot of numbers, so I'm just not expecting like a lot of absorption with that, but I'll share the slides. We have, I don't know, close to 90 pages of data. It's a lot of data to process through. But some of, one of our coalition partners, Amy Brewer from the Vermont Tobacco Prevention Coalition, kind of put these numbers together. The numbers in red are negative trends, and the numbers in green are positive trends that we're seeing. So you'll see the 3 years of data for the different substances, and then it's broken out by grade bands. And P.Y is Planet Youth, if you can.
So when you say
That-
negative, you don't mean it's going down, it means it's
Yes.
having a negative impact?
Negative
Okay.
impact. Yeah. So last year when I gave a presentation, it was really, I celebrated the fact that we were seeing a lot of less substance use last year. This year, however, we're starting to see the trends creep back up. So it's kind of a question of what's going on with some of these substances. And again, we have to have some coalition meetings. We have to talk to some students and unpack the why. Is it some social stuff? Is it marketing? With cannabis use, easy, that's in the next page. It's, yeah, if you don't mind, thank you. Recent changes in the laws could be affecting that. So cannabis has been like a really big topic among the prevention networks, because there's a lot of talk about sales and legality, but there's very little talk actually about how do we protect our young people, because we've spent generations working against alcohol and tobacco, and it sometimes doesn't feel like we've learned those lessons, like culturally, in terms of, sure, it can be legal, whatever your opinion is, but in terms of marketing and sales, advertisements are still like at 3-foot levels for young children to see. So it's just kind of community-wide, like having those conversations around appropriateness for young people. So that's some of the stuff that we've looked at with substance use, and we'll be spending some time with the SAP counselors at both the schools, kind of like unpacking like at the school level with some of that data. Next one, please. So, when trends dose in both schools, and again, that's Richford Junior Senior High School and Enosburg Falls, but that's not like within the school building specifically, it's just the students. There's some social impacts with the both too. There's a positive correlation between the perception of harm among parents and substance use rates and how much time families are spending with each other. That's pretty well known among people, but we're actually seeing that hard data. We are seeing this with the 3 years a decline in support among peers, and some social supports that students are feeling that they can receive within their communities. But there's 80% of youth are saying that they receive other kinds of supports from their parents and caregivers. So we're seeing just, those are two different things. The questions are a little different. And then, not unexpectedly, the feeling of mental and physical discomfort has increased. And that's across all grade spans in both schools. There were sections that asked for some, they altered the survey a little bit, specifically to be looking at mental health because of the impact of COVID, so that we can provide supports for our young people. And then there's just an interesting dip of sense of belonging and connectedness, specifically within the 9th and 10th graders. each year. So it's not necessarily the same group of students, but it's the same age band every year. So that's something that I'll be working through with the coalitions too, of just what's going on with that group. But we have historically seen like transitional age groups tend to have the lower numbers for they tend to have higher risk factors and fewer protective factors for that time period. Next one, please. And then substance use, I kind of went over that in the other two giant charts. But chewing tobacco is high, and alcohol and cannabis use are popular. We saw a dip in e-cigarette use, but it's jumping again. And then substance use in the middle school is on the rise. As I said, the transitional grades tend to be a vulnerable population. But and just to confuse everybody, when I say positive trends for the 11th and 12th graders, I mean, they're tracking of having low substance use rates. So, thank you. So kind of taking this information, we work with a coalition to look at all the different data points and develop the story that's being told and getting to the why and seeing what actions each community would like to take, whether it's more of the same or trying a new strategy. So some of the work the coalition group will be doing will be sharing, once some of the data is connected, is sharing with some of the stakeholders in presentations, building our coalition network as well, and keeping to work with like the youth voice work that we've been doing and just continuing to expand that. The youth councils have really started to take root. This was just their second year, so they're going to be kind of building on the lessons learned. And we've actually been having people contact the coalition and the youth councils of like, hey, what about this project for next year? So that's really exciting. And then the last one, maybe that was my last slide. Yeah, so that is the Vermont Youth Project in a nutshell with a little bit of a recap of some of our data. Any questions?
That was good info. Anybody else have a question? Great, thank you so much. Lynn, what else do you think?
So are you, was that where you were ending, or are you doing it?
With the Vermont Youth Project, and then there was summer.
So I'm gonna ask you to just do a quick overview of summer, for weeks in both of the communities.
Yes. So I've got a small variety of some of the brochures, not one of each for everybody, but just I'm a visual person and I sometimes helps to have something to look at. So as I alluded to earlier, our summer camps are bursting. It's so amazing. It's so wonderful. I was doing some comparison data and we have at least 100 more youth enrolled in summer camps this year than we did pre-pandemic. That's SU-wide, but the reason we got the grant from United Way for Enosburg is we had about 120 youth enrolled in our summer camp and we had room for about 90 of them. So we looked, I found this grant opportunity, so we were able to hire some more staff. We've also been trying to expand our staff at some of our other sites too. Right now we're really limited on busing and how many staff members we can actually hire is kind of where we're at. If those were not factors, I'd that we could get 50 or more students in our programs. Like, they're really excited. So we're continuing on with field trips at every site. The elementary sites are mostly going on outdoor adventures, Albert Dunes, Killcare. We're working with Rosalie to do the LJW Memorial Fields. We have book clubs, Cliff book events, and Rachel Huff, who used to work with Healthy Roots. She's doing some Vermont, some from the school work with us in all of our programs. The high schools are going on slightly different adventures, as you see in some of the flyers. Going to Get Air with them. They're going to the National Guard to learn about those programs. Spirit of Ethan Allen trips to learn about history of the lakes. And through all of our activities, we're ensuring that all the students are receiving like doses of literature and math and science in very fun and energetic ways, making a lot of games out of them and using just different ways of incorporating the learning into our different activities. So we have rocket building, kites, we're doing plays, cooking, fishing, taekwondo, golfing opportunities, and very personally excited about this one. My dog's being trained as a therapy dog, and we're gonna do a Read to a Dog program where available, and so it's we're blending the middle school programs again, so middle school students from Montgomery, Richford, and Berkshire are coming here. And Bakersfield, Enosburg, and Sheldon students are going to the Enosburg school for that camp, and the elementary programs are staying with just the elementary students. And we're also building in some service learning opportunities as well to get the students out in the community and doing some projects there.
Nice. That's impressive. For sure.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's a lot of organizing.
Yes, staff have been planning for at least 4 months.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Nice.
Heather has a way of pulling it all together and making it look easy when we all know it's
No, it's
really
not, like, that's a lot of dedication.
Thank you for presenting on both of those,
Yes.
Heather, I appreciate that. And if there's any data, if you wanna share the slideshow or the links there with the board, please do that.
Yes, I will do that right now so I don't forget. Yeah, and any questions before I
Thanks so much.
so I'm going to have to go to another meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate all the support the board has given our programs.
Yeah, well, thanks for supporting the kids to have something to do in the summer, for sure. Lynn, what do you got?
Okay, so I'm gonna start off with personnel.
Okay.
So I'm gonna do hiring. I'm gonna give you all of it, and the licensed educators are the ones I will ask you to move on at the end. So at Enosburg Elementary School, and Jane, I will get this to you at the end because it evolves from the time that we send this out. We're adding to it every day. So at Enosburg Elementary School, Molly Swainbank for paraeducator position. Enosburg High School, Donald Coop will be teaching high school social studies. Elizabeth Leach, front desk receptionist. Andrea LaRoche, a BT paraeducator. Robert Jarvis has been hired as a technology integrationist for, this was a reshaped position after Nate Gingras left. So he's coming back to us. Penelope Wade, high school English. At Richford Elementary School, Joanne Cardy, preschool. Sharon Wright, literacy paraeducator. That is our Sharon Wright, who was a teacher at the elementary school, was a teacher mentor for us at the SU, so she's retired a second time for us, and then we've hired her a third time as a paraeducator, so we love that we get to keep her. Lori McGraw has agreed to take on a half-time assistant principal position and a half-time math interventionist position at Richford Elementary. Tina Beauregard, a behavior technician for the RISE program, that's SU funded. Marie Weatherby is working as an evening custodian. Ashley Quigley, school counselor. Mary Ann Sanborn is an SU grant funded math interventionist. At Richford Junior Senior High School, R. Lee Miller, industrial arts, tech ed / STEM. And Elizabeth Martin, middle school humanities. So I'd ask the board to approve hiring all of the licensed educators in that report.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Mark makes the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
Jane, it's in your email.
Thank you.
Resignations, this is just informational. At Enosburg Middle School, Nicole Horrigan Fair, that's an SU special ed position. At Enosburg High School, Jennifer Burns, she's a paraeducator moving to an SU special ed teacher position. Jennifer Lynn, the evening custodian, has resigned. At Richford Elementary School, Brianna Rye, paraeducator. Vanessa Perot, paraeducator. She's moving to the SU level to be a special education teacher. In Richford Junior Senior High School, Sharon LaRose, paraeducator. Bobby Jo Capone is a paraeducator, moving to the SU to become a special ed teacher. Kelly Legassi, paraeducator, moving to the SU to be a literacy intervention teacher. That's through grant funding, right?
Right, but
CFP.
here in this building.
So that's informational. Any
Mhm.
questions on either of those? And we also have a resignation from Jerry Capone for the Richford Schools Facilities Manager position. So open positions, I am gonna choose to read through those, in hopes that someone is watching and is looking for a job. We have several positions still open at Enosburg Elementary School. We're looking for a grade 4 teacher, a paraeducator, behavior technician, bus monitor, evening custodian, SLP, paraeducator, math interventionist, and a long-term substitute teacher for kindergarten.
We all set with the math interventionists,
Okay.
and BT we don't need.
Okay, so all but those two. Enosburg Middle School is looking for a school counselor. Enosburg High School is looking for a paraeducator, behavior technician, an athletic trainer, high school science teacher, high school English teacher, Spanish teacher, an evening custodian, varsity boys basketball coach, varsity girls soccer coach, JV baseball coach, and JV softball coach.
So the English teacher was there, it's the Spanish teacher.
The English teacher was hired?
Penelope,
Okay,
yeah, the one you already announced.
so all but the English.
Yeah.
See, we're having a hard time keeping up
I
with all
know,
the hiring.
so she's been, but we need a Spanish teacher too.
What everybody.
Yes, exactly. Richford Elementary School has 0.6 FTE librarian, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5 teachers, school-based clinician, and a social worker. Richford Junior Senior High School has the guidance secretary position open and paraeducator positions open. And then I have 2 personnel matters for executive session. You wanna save those until the end.
Yeah, let's say that's for him.
And then I'm gonna talk briefly, unless you have questions, just about school safety in FNESU. I know that is on all of our hearts and minds after what happened in Texas recently. I think that every time this happens, it makes people reflect on our own children, our own personal children, and children in our schools. So I wanted to just give an update, and this is something that we talked a lot about pre-pandemic, and the pandemic definitely got in our way a little bit in terms of our crisis response planning and practicing, because some of the things we were doing before the pandemic to ensure the safety for our students and staff, we were unable to practice certain things because of the mitigation measures that were in place. So I'm gonna talk through what's in place, and we're gonna be meeting over the summer to make sure that anything that had to be paused is renewed for the fall. So we have a safety team working on this. So as most of you know, that the FNESU adopted the ALICE options-based response plan. I think we're going on for 5 years at this point, so we've been doing it for quite some time. We have been training all people who work in our buildings, so all of our substitute teachers, our classroom teachers, any support staff that work. We've trained bus drivers over the years and just tried to really think through and give opportunities to not only learn about the response, but to actually physically practice. What would you do in this type of scenario or that type of scenario? Because that's where it really starts to, it gets embedded in your psyche when you get to practice and think about what would happen. We do an online training, so everyone is recertified annually in this, and throughout the year, this is the piece that we lost during the pandemic, were the situational practice drills that we did with students. So it's very different than what we do with adults. It's developmentally appropriate. It's for our youngest kids. It's designed and connected to a children's story. But we practice each of the options and spread that out over the course of the year, and then we do a full drill at the end of the year. So we will be shifting back to that for next year. I don't share, when I talk about these things publicly, I don't share all of the details, because one of the things I think it's important for us to remember is that in a lot of these situations, the dangerous someone in buildings is often known. So we don't, as sad as that is, we don't make all of the things we do around school safety really public. So we have monthly both fire drills and safety drills that we practice, and we've done a lot of work in the last several years around building access. And that's a place where we're going to continue to be tight on, and we'll be revisiting this with leaders this summer, and they'll be revisiting with their staff in the fall around that single point of entry. So we should not be having any doors propped open in our building. Our building should be secure at all times, unless it's a drop off or pickup where a staff member is there to welcome kids in. Our buildings are almost all shifted to the swipe cards, and I know that's on Vern's list to be working towards. We have the cameras to be able to buzz people in to our buildings, so you don't have to physically go out and see who is there. You can see it remotely. One of the things about the swipe cards that we all have is it allows us to have greater security in our schools, because previously when schools had just keys, when people would leave, sometimes there would be keys remaining in a community that were not collected over the years, and those things became security issues. So these are really easy to manage, because when something happens with someone, they retire or they resign after a period of time, we just deactivate those key cards, and we can have really good control of the building, and we can see who is coming and going at any point in those buildings. And then the last thing is the work that we're doing. This is more of the proactive. I just talked about our response pieces, but more of the proactive work. The board, the SU board, I know is in full support of, because they just approved our SEL priority standards, and that real focus on the mental health and well-being of our students, and investing in that in our schools is incredibly important. So we will continue to make that a priority. That's evident in all of our schools, that it continues to be an urgent need for us to keep working there. So any questions on the school safety overview? Okay. So I invited Vern Boomhoover, who is our facilities director for FNESU, to come in and do an overview with this UUSD board on the summer work plan. He is a busy guy, and he is someone that has very quickly in this year, in his first year here, gotten his finger on the pulse of what's going on in all of our buildings, and he made magic today. He was describing what went on in our schools today, and just being able to have that unique vantage point that none of the rest of us have, and did moving some things and swapping some equipment out in buildings that just made sense for schools. And so he's going to talk to you a little bit about what he's been working on.
Well, the projects are plentiful, that's for sure. Some schools are getting more done this year than other schools, just because of some grants that we're waiting on and things like that. So some of the schools will look like they aren't getting a whole heck of a lot done this year, but they'll get the lion's share next year, hopefully with the grants and everything that's coming out as far as money. Enosburg High School, again, school's beautiful, it's a great shape, so one of the first things that they wanted to do when I got there was get their bleachers unmotorized, so they stopped trashing them. So we're gonna go through and put motors on the bleachers, had to do a little bit of electrical. We're waiting on some backstops for the fields, and Doug has some things, just some oddball things, but nothing really huge monetarily. At the junior high, we had to make some arrangements for some incoming situations for next year. We delivered those today, by the way, so you're all set there. So we should be good. We'll start getting that rolling. Enosburg Elementary, again, this is one of the ones that doesn't really look like there's a lot going on, but we're going through the 3-acre permit for stormwater next year, and I had a meeting with them the other day, and it went from a potentially 90% match to a 95% match, so it's kind of worth the wait. I mean, we've got a parking lot there that's in really, really tough shape, but you know, if we can wait a year and get that 95% match, it's worth the wait. We're gonna do some work in some of the staff bathrooms. We're gonna abate some asbestos tile. And one thing that Jenny and I have talked about is we want to continue picking 2 or 3 rooms a year, getting them abated, and just go down that path. Everything is encapsulated, it's perfectly safe there, but we want to just get it on the list to start going through and getting 2 to 3 classrooms done a year. It won't take long once we get rolling. Richford Elementary, projects are plentiful there. We're doing a parking lot. Every time we seem to pull out these oil tanks, they don't seem to fix anything. They just kind of leave there. It looks like literally something blew up in the parking lot. So we've got to get that fixed. Surge pumps, we've already got that done. Jerry was able to get a grant for all new VFD circulator pumps, so that's a real big savings. Paint, the school is very, very dark, these colors, and one of the things we're also going after, I haven't put it on here yet, but I'm working on right now the 4 NMV schools getting the efficiency grant for lighting. We've missed the boat up here as far as the lighting, and it's a huge savings and a quick turnaround on your dollar, so we want to try to get that rolling as soon as we can. We're working on that right now. Refrigeration, that's a nightmare. We picked the top 4 schools by urgency as needed, and they're dropping now, so we're working on that. We were able to get 1 or 2 grants for that. Morgan, 1? 2 grants.
1 and 1's pending.
And then we applied for another one. So that's hopefully something that will get rolling. Concrete's a huge safety issue there. It heaves to a point where doors and everything are affected. So that's a pretty important safety issue. So we want to get that one knocked out this summer as well. And one of the things we're going to try to get that front open in the school a little bit and do some work on that as far as entry. Richford High School, the big one there this year is gym floor. That floor served its purpose, and we're going to take it right down to nothing and redo it. It's a beautiful gym, and the floor is in need of being done. We worked on one of the logos to make it look a little bit more like a rocket, so we're excited about that. Parking lot, we're going to do the front of the school again. I think that's where some of the oil tanks were, and when it was dug up, and so we want to make it safe. We don't want to lose a Chevy in the parking lot. Perimeter drain. we've got a lot of leakage on the cafeteria wall. Can't remember which way it faces north, but I think north wall. These old schools are, as I'm sure Polly remembers, we had a BFA used to rain in there after so they don't like to tie on to existing perimeter drains, and these perimeter drains are, I'm sure, crushed, so we're gonna do a little work there to try to get that taken care of. The backboards, they've got an old system that, again, was similar to BFA, which entails a half-horse drill that brings them up and down. It's really not a safe situation, so we're gonna spend the money to get these backboards on a keyed switch. Refrigeration here, we're in the process right now of redoing the freezer here. We lost that a couple weeks ago. We were able to act quickly. We didn't lose much product. We were able to move some over to the Richford Elementary School, and we had a small freezer here that we were able to catch it. Again, the wall in that back, the pointing on it, there's a lot of cracking and separation there, and as well as the doorway. So we're going to try to get that patched up and dry things up a little bit. So I reached out to Joe. He was actually, I used him at BFA years ago, and he was pretty good at what he does. One of the big things we're going after for the high school is we're going after the grant for the wood chip plant. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm not a grant writer, but I've got somebody in my back pocket. Hopefully they'll help me out with that. I can give them the information, but I'm not the guy to write it. So that's a pretty exciting one. That's a big one, and it would be great to get this wood chip plant back going. I know the town would like to see it, and I know we would too. It would be a huge savings. And what? Go ahead.
Just explain that a little bit for me.
Okay, so the wood chip plant here, and I'm coming into this second. Originally, the wood chip plant was put in prior to new windows, new doors here, so they oversized it. They did a BTU heat loss on the school, and at that point, it needed X amount of BTUs for the school. Went through, we put new doors, new windows, and now we're having a hard time. We can't really run the wood chip plant because it's producing so much heat that we can't slow it down enough to not overheat the school. Now the answer would be if it was a steam boiler or something and we had an ice melt system or something, we could put what we call the dump station in, something that we could dump some of that excess heat. We don't really have a good place to do it. I talked to some people. We talked about dumping in the attic. That doesn't really make any sense at all. We don't have an ice melt system. And quite frankly, if you do some quick math, if you figure out what you're paying for wood chips and then literally dumping them, it just doesn't make, monetarily, it's foolish to do it. So we reached out, the grant came up, and I was pretty excited about it, and even more excited about it when we got to go to the next step. There is some interest in the existing boiler. It's not like we're going to throw it out and not try to recoup any money. There's wood companies that need to dry wood. There's people out there that we can sell. We just got to find the right person. We had a sugar maker that was very interested in it, big sugar maker, obviously. So I was kind of hopeful that, and he kind of bowed out on us. So there is a need for this boiler. Somebody it would be useful for. It's just it's too big for what we need.
Okay, so the grant is to get it out.
The grant is to get a new one and to get that one out.
Okay.
The grant is to get one sized properly for the school.
Okay.
Yes. I was really quite surprised how quickly they came back, but this is something the state is really, really excited about doing. So I'm pretty excited about it too. Like I said, I'd be a lot more excited if we could sell this one first. So that's one thing that we're crossing our fingers on.
We didn't do new doors, we just did new windows.
New windows,
in the old part.
Yeah.
I mean, they were the original windows, over 100 years old, so it made a huge difference.
Yeah.
The wind didn't blow through the whole building.
Yeah.
Talk about air exchange.
Yeah.
Windy.
I mean, and the nice thing about it is we can still keep some of the infrastructure, the circular pump should be okay. You know, there's gonna be a lot that we're gonna be able to reuse. But the boiler itself is just oversized. And we can't find, Brad Novisky, sorry, out of New York, Plattsburgh, he is pretty much he set up every wood chip boiler in the state. And I called him the first week I was here, and because it just seemed senseless not to be able to run it. He says, there's just not anything that we can do to slow that system down enough to not overheat. So, no software yet, as of yet, to be able to do it. So, this is our next best thing, I guess. So that's Richford High. Cold Hollow, got a lot of exciting stuff going on there, but everything's kind of in limbo right now. But so just to back up a little bit. So when I kind of went around to each one of these schools, I want to fix what I call the bones. It doesn't make paint dresses up a place, but when you've got boilers that are 25, 30 years old, you've got to fix the infrastructure before you worry about the aesthetics, I guess. Paint's cheap, and we can do that. So, and this is what we talked about with Cold Hollow. What is that? A 1983 building. We've got original equipment in there, and there's a lot more efficient equipment out there. And Nate and I sat down, and he asked me where we should start, and it was kind of a roll the dice every morning when you stop in there, whether the boilers were running or whether they weren't. So that's not a good situation for anybody that wants to sleep at night. So we decided that we were going to jump on the boilers and then start working on the air handling equipment and everything. So we're working on with A. Cooper. They're going to put 2 new boilers in for us there. We're going to just put what we want for controls in there just for the boiler, and then we'll keep kind of extending to the future. We'll leave ourselves in a good place so we can tack onto this existing work that's getting done in the boiler room. We're changing up the circular pumps to a VFD, which is a variable drive. That's a huge savings. We can pay for that probably in a year and a half with what we're going to make for save on electric. Sugar House, this has been a slow process for us, but I think we're making some headway. We couldn't find a single property pole or marker for the entire each side of the building that we wanted to put up, so we had to spend a little money to have the property surveyed to be able to move to the next step. We did have a very minute amount of lead paint, which wasn't enough that the state was worried about, so that saved us a lot of money to be able to tear that building down and not have to worry about any kind of abatement. So basically what we're working on now, and Nate, if I'm speaking out of turn, step in, but we're now at the process with the engineer. We have pretty much solidified the design, correct?
Yep.
Seth and New have done a great job with that. And now it's just a matter of going out once we get that final, basically the go ahead to go out and get the bids and get it rolling. I believe we have to go out for a bid for
We got
the tear
the
down too.
forms, surveyors were there today, again,
Yeah.
finalizing.
Yeah, like I said, we had to expand on the survey just because I guess they pull up property lines here in Enosburg. I don't know, but there's not many markers out there. So so in a nutshell, that's kind of what we're shooting for this summer. And again, there's going to be some bumps in the road. That rainy day fund better help us out a little bit if something else comes up. But this is what we kind of discussed and figured that was money best spent as far as where we wanted to go and how we were going to get there. But again, like I said, just because some schools are getting a little bit more this year, it's just because some schools need more. And basically we just prioritized and saw where we need to be.
And so, the plan is for most of those projects to come out of the capital reserve, correct?
That and any kind of grants or anything.
And grants,
like that, yeah.
And, yeah, the reason why I ask is because, when we ask the voters to make that decision to
Yeah.
put money aside, it's moments like this where, you can see that it's gonna add up pretty quickly, but
Yes.
the fact that we have put it away for those very purposes
Yeah.
should give the taxpayers a little bit of solace
Yeah.
for sure.
I mean, we've got some, you know, basically we're doing 1, 2, 3 parking lots. 3 parking lots, which are, you know, high ticket, but
Yeah.
well, Morgan and I and Lynn was involved. I mean, we're gonna do it correctly, you know, spend a little bit more money, but that parking lot will be there 20 years from now versus just kind of paving it and it's gonna crack in a year. So we're trying to do the best we can for longevity. And the same thing with the heating and the nice thing about it is the state's really come out with some really nice grants. We were able to get for Montgomery, we got a ERU to bring in some fresh air and get rid of the stale air. I was hoping to get a few more grants, but obviously I'm not the only show in the state, so I guess
Get
they
line, as they
needed
say.
so.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's where we're at. And anybody got any questions or anything?
Yeah, I'm just assuming you thought of this, but that wood chip boiler is too big for a coal pile as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, there is a need. Like I said, these wood companies that need to kiln dry their wood and everything. That's where I'm kind of concentrating on getting it marketed. Again, Brad gave me some contacts for some people that might be interested. So I'm hopeful that somebody will
Okay.
be interested in it. The other thing is we could potentially go wood pellets versus wood chips. We're not sure. He's helping us out as far as a consultant to see what our best move is as far as what to put in there. Again, it's an ever-changing market, so we want to just make sure that we're doing the right thing. I spoke with Lynn and Morgan. I said, you know, I'm not a heating specialist as far as wood chips, so we're kind of using this Brad as a consultant to help us out because he knows a whole lot more about that than I do. So.
Great.
I think the other thing on the summer project list is that according to the state's calendar, Richford Elementary will be tested for PCBs
Oh, right.
by the end of this month, and that's a 6-week process, and we still don't have a call from that consultant yet.
Okay.
And sometime between July and September, Enosburg Elementary is supposed to get their testing, and same consultant. So, you know, we've heard that they're backed up.
Okay.
We can't seem to get an answer. I sent the nastygram a couple days ago, and they were told to contact us ASAP, but we haven't heard anything yet. But
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a whole lot of schools in that list, so.
Yeah, we'll just have to take it into account, I guess.
Yeah.
So on that note, how quick was it you testing and the results come back?
I have heard it can be up to 6 weeks.
Okay, and then when we get the results back, do we have any interpretation of what we do with those results? From anybody?
Do we have it yet, or are we gonna have it then?
Either or.
So my limited understanding, and feel free to jump in on this, I had a conversation with somebody from Department of Environmental Control, I guess. And so what they are anticipating is when the results get back, they will have kind of a basket of responses. So if your result is in this range, here are some of the things that you could do, and this is how you communicate that to your community. It would be a pretty high level to say we're shutting the doors and not letting anybody in. Most of it is, can you do something with airflow in the building? Can you move your pre-K kids out of the most contaminated part of the building? Doing things like that, depending on where those levels come in. I was also told that when the consultant comes up, what they may do is they may do a walk through the building and say, I see you've got all the old fluorescent lights, you should change those out before we test. And then they'll push us down the queue, give us a chance to take out some of the stuff that they know has PCBs before we get any tests that then go out to your community.
One of the things is the PCBs, where they're finding a lot is in old ballasts from the 70s, but I gotta believe there can be a whole heck of a lot of ballasts from the 70s in these schools. The other thing is some of the capacitors in the air handlers and stuff like that, which, again, 7's a long time ago, but we just don't know. And the nice thing about it is they have raised the levels to what they originally were with VHS. VHS were well below what the levels should have been.
I think that's what.
State level is
Yeah.
much more stricter than the feds.
We don't have Macy's.
I had actually heard from a colleague Friday who's got a construction project going on that they tested materials for some windows that they're replacing. And the results were, call it 10 times or 100 times higher than what they had in Burlington. Not for an air test, but for a substance test. And so they were thinking, well, we're gonna shut the building down, and the consultant said, I'll just put another coat of paint on the inside and you're fine. So there seems to be a real gray area about what you do, and if it's, can you just encapsulate it the way you've done with the asbestos, or do you really have to do a full removal and remediation?
I feel like it's gonna depend on what they find in it,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Like the
Exactly.
thing about Burlington is it was in the soil too, so there was site contamination, so. I just don't, I don't think, we all have those same questions, like, if X, then what, if Y, then what? So I think we're anxious, not that we want Richford Elementary to be the first, test, but we're anxious to have one come back, so we can see what that report is gonna look like, and then what that will trigger for us, so that we can use that as an opportunity to learn about what we can expect in this other community.
And it might be something along the lines of like what Bart's doing at Enosburg, it's like every year you're gonna abate, you know, a section. That may be part of the plan. Alright, great. Anything else, Vern? That was super helpful, thank you. Get the big picture.
I just wanna say before I move off Vern is how appreciative I am as a former principal to have someone like Vern be able to take the lead on all of those summer projects and looking around the table at the other principals who historically, all of that work and all of those bids and all of the, you know, trying to figure out, is this the right work or not the right work? He knows the right people to ask, and he has got that skill set to be able to understand so many of the facilities areas in depth that I feel like we're investing our money really wisely in our communities, and like I said earlier, he's positioned really well to see the whole picture for the first time, and I think that, you know, our choice to have someone at that level and really be investing in the physical buildings, the physical resources that we have here was a wise choice, so. I also just wanna mention that Kelly has joined the Zoom, and I apologize, I didn't mention at the start, there was a dedication for her dad tonight at the J. Westfield School, and she mentioned that to me last night, and I had forgotten to say why she wasn't here. So welcome, Kelly, we're glad you could join us.
Thank you.
So I'll jump back into mine. The last thing I had, except for the executive, is around summer hiring. So I would ask the board to contemplate granting me the authority to hire professional staff throughout the summer.
Okay, Devin makes the motion to grant Lynn authority to hire over the summer professional staff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And aye. Okay, are you good? Okay. So that brings us to principals' reports. Hi Kelly, you're first up. Do you have anything to add other than what was in your report?
I do not, it's all informational.
Great, thanks. Beth?
Not really, except I wanted to point out, we did project-based learning last week, and there are two projects you can see that are very prominent. The little library, there's several of them around town when you go out, I think you can see it.
I saw one, yeah.
And Marty Valander, a group of students worked with Marty Valander, and they did the welcome sign by the Richford in all the different languages, pointing toward
I saw
different
that too,
countries.
yeah.
And so if you didn't see them, I just wanted to point them out because they're prevalent.
I
You
saw
can
that
see
come
them.
in as well.
Yeah,
I
isn't
saw
it cool?
too, yeah.
Are the languages connected to the countries that your exchange students are from?
No, I don't
was curious
believe
when
so.
came
I
in,
think that they
it's very-
just chose different countries, and then they wrote a report on it as well, so. But But the rest is informational.
And I hear graduation, that's great.
Thank you.
And did you see it in the messenger today?
Yeah, you quoted almost my
I
whole
know,
speech.
exactly, you got a lot of press right there.
Wow.
Jen, how about you?
All informational.
Okay, great. Rachel? Joseph?
Informational.
Okay.
And just to add, graduation was wonderful.
Yeah.
And on the entrance to the rail trail, we had 2 murals that were done by students. And we had a few glitches that went along with that, but the murals looked great.
Yeah, they do.
So,
But the glitches have been taken care of.
yes,
Took care of our neighbor.
we did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, this is your last board meeting.
It is.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you
And
for
your hard
hiring me
work.
3 years ago.
I know,
That's all right.
but what a whirlwind. And Nate, how about you?
I wish I could let you go, but I gotta share something with you. Morgan, can you call that up real quick? Last week I gave you a copy of our CLNA summary. Looking at it today, realized I gave you the rough draft version, which is fine. It's the same information, it's just not as pretty.
Okay.
And it doesn't include, and what you've seen the real version,
I have
and
seen
Linda's seen the real version, because it's, we're part of, our regional advisory board is part of Northwest Tech, so we've taken a regional approach. And so so this year we had to do a comprehensive local needs assessment, and it is getting submitted soon. When I tell you that it was 630 pages, I'm not lying to you. It was ridiculously a amount of work that, I'm talking about fairness, I'm just like, Essex had to do the same thing, and they get $500,000 and I get $80,000. It just doesn't seem fair, but that's just the way it goes. But I don't know if you've gone through it and looked through it at all.
So my question is, the one that we have, is that the rough draft version?
That's the rough draft version. This is
This
the
is
pretty
the final.
version.
This is the
Same
pretty
stuff. I just took, I had to give my stuff to Leanne,
Yeah.
right, and Leanne made it pretty.
Right, okay.
And so it's all the same thing. And if you want to go, we can just go through it real quick. And if there's, what I have to do is there's 6 areas, and I need to share with you where we rank kind of in those areas, how, if we're doing well or not well. I'll tell you right now, across the board, we don't have to do any improvement plans. We are at or close enough or meeting or exceeding all the different targets in all the different areas where we don't have to do an improvement plan. So that's great. But the first area is student performance. And I'm gonna go fast because it could take an hour, and I don't want it to take an hour for you guys. Where we are the weakest is our work keys assessment. And you can see that in math, we're the worst. But we still, but that's fall. We're waiting our spring results. And we can go to the next Word document one. We're a little bit better at workplace documents. That's, yeah.
Back it up.
And so one of our we don't need to have an improvement plan, but one of the things that we are doing is we got a grant, we've got the Work Keys curriculum. So some schools have already used that curriculum, and that's helped them tremendously on the assessments. So we will be integrating applied math and workplace documents through all pre-tech classes and junior year of the first year classes. So they may be able to, based on that and our success, we might be able to start awarding proficiencies or extra credits if they start passing those and getting, it's a 3 through a 7. And if you get to different levels, there's bronze and platinum and gold. So we will see improvement. I have a feeling that we're not going to see improvement on the spring results, simply because anybody that got a 5 or higher in the fall didn't have to take it in the spring. So that was kind of a deal we made with them, because if you get a 5 or higher, you don't have to. So it might look, so when I show you those results, it might look like we went down. However, I will put in the fact that these kids already passed it, so it should.
So 2 things.
Yes.
One, can you explain work keys, what a work keys is for people who may not know?
Sure. Morgan, can you go back to the second, one more?
There.
So this is a, can you guys read that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, they take tests.
So there's 3 tests total. But they are, ACT is the same group that does other ACT testing. I don't know if they're part of the SATs. No, I think it's
they're
different.
separate.
They're
Yeah.
separate ones. So it's a national recognized test, online. And like I said, I think they're good. They're really focused on more career readiness.
Career.
And so it's like I said, workplace documents is reading manuals, reading procedures and things like that. And then like the math questions, like we've done some sample math stuff. So it's like to get a 3, you need to be able to count change. And then by the time
Okay.
that you're trying to get up to a 6 or 7, you need to find, cubic yards of concrete,
Okay.
things like that. So.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
So the second question I have is, if you go to the slides with the graphs.
Sure.
So, looking at some of those tech centers that are scoring well, I mean, I'm sure there's a gazillion factors on what might raise those scores. But is there any thought about maybe visiting some of those tech centers just to see like what kind
We
of
are,
vetting?
and that's the slight discrepancy because it's a really 3 through 7.
Yeah,
And that graph only shows 3 through 5. So even the best center is only scoring like 1 point higher than us.
higher, right.
So it's slightly skewed. It's not like they're that much better than us.
They're still above the green line.
They are above the green line, which is the state average, which is still not even a 5,
Right.
right? So
No,
to
right.
even be at a level where we're supposed to be proficient,
Right.
we're supposed to be at a 5, and the highest one's at a 4.8. But yes, absolutely.
Just
We
seeing
have.
where they're at.
Next year, we have one day where we're definitely, our teachers are gonna be visiting
Oh,
other
wow.
schools. So that has, we used to do that a lot. We haven't done that in the last 3 years.
Well, right.
Nate, one of the things that you and I talked about when we were reflecting on this is also the getting clearer with students and with staff about the purpose of the assessment
Right.
and getting that buy-in and some of those other, we had the exact same conversation about explicit instruction and
Right.
understanding, what this test is going to be measuring.
Right.
And so you talked about how you're weaving that in for next year.
Right, well, I
to
mean,
get clearer.
I've had teachers say, well, we're not gonna teach you the test, and then, conversely, for the LNA test or for the CDL test, they are teaching it exactly to the test. So I think it's easier for, I think in the past, it's been easier for my teachers to not teach to the academic test and then turn around and make sure that they have the exact skills they're gonna need for the LNA test. So they're teaching to the test, so they were kind of caught in their own little, like, you can't teach
Well, I
the
think it's a
test.
fine balance too, like
Yeah.
you don't wanna be
Right.
driven by this one test, however, there are skills probably in that test that are
Absolutely.
gonna help you be
Yep.
successful in those careers.
And the other piece of it is, we used to be, the SBACs used to be what we were held accountable to, and that was taken in the fall or spring of their junior year, and we had only had them in some case, well, I guess NECAP was fall,
Right.
SBAC was spring, so at least now we have a lot more influence over how they're gonna do. So we purchased the curriculum, we're gonna implement it, that's gonna be a lot of our in-service work in the spring, in the fall, so we expect to see that go up. The other measures, real quick, if you jump ahead to slide 7. Graduation rate, FY, so this was all provided by our state database and the state numbers. We had 100% graduation rate, 21. I don't know our current 22 rate. Our goal is 89%. We had to come up with targets for all these, and that was negotiated 2 years ago based on like the last 5 years of data. So we had a
Can I
couple
ask
low
a
years.
question about that?
Yep.
So how is that determined? Is that kids that started in your program and then
They need to be considered a concentrator, so it depends on how long they've been there. So if they've completed one full year as a junior, then they're in that cohort.
So if they did one semester as a junior and didn't come back for
Then-
second semester, then they don't count against
They're
you?
not considered a concentrator, correct? Yep. All right, and next one is extended graduation, non-traditional. So non-traditional is any male and a female program or male and a female program. This is an area the whole state is working on, but our target was 5.6, we have a 9.4, but I know this year we're lower, this concentrated. So again, that's an area where we're gonna be working on how can we recruit non-traditional enrollment into our programs? How can we get females in automotive and females in construction, males into medical careers? So it's a that's a major focus. Next one,
Are any of your programs considered neutral
yes,
business?
business, yep. And I don't know about human services, teacher prep, I'll have to look at that. Post-secondary credit, IRCs, we're very lucky that every one of our program teachers that has an IRC to offer, can offer it, they're certified.
Those industry recognized credentials.
Yes, so LNA, CDL, GAMO logging, Vermont State Inspection. Some do not have these yet, so we're still working on figuring out things like the teacher prep program. You could get a paraeducator certificate, but that's not a national recognized credential or an industry recognized. It's a credential, but it's not a tier 2 credential. Tier 2 credentials are, they help an individual start at a higher wage. They show mastery of a particular skill. It's not like first aid, CPR. Those are credentials, but not tier 2. We'll go to the next one. Again, college credits. 34% of our students are earning college credits. Target 25. And again, every one of our teachers that has a college credit associated with it can get it. We're working on agreements with VTC through construction. Right now, construction, auto, and forestry credits can be waived, but they cannot earn college credits yet. So, in like medical careers, they're earning 12, 15 college credits. So there's a couple things we need to do there. One, to get our teachers certified, they need to have a master's level in some places, and if they don't, then they're not able to teach it, and we'll have to partner with another. We'll have to have a teacher of record.
Right.
So we're still working on increasing our kids for college credits. The next one, work-based learning, 42%, we want to get 50. Again, that's obviously skewed because of COVID the last few years. Get more people in the workforce. And next one, 97% of our students are in post-secondary, military, or employed in a related field. And quickly go through labor market. We have 6 programs, and they're all they're related to the 6 most growth areas in Vermont. So that's, again, certain places have to worry about that and create an improvement plan. We don't. All of our programs are directly aligned to where there are lots of jobs right now. Places like you have to have high wage, high skill, high demand jobs. So programs like culinary, even though there might be some jobs, those aren't maybe high wage. So those programs are having to be looked at. Cosmetology is a program that is being scrutinized by the state. EMT, first responders, because sometimes those are volunteers. So there's a lot of those positions that we value as a CT center that we think those, especially, any one of those, they go work in the community, they become involved in the community. We value that. So we're just having to kind of, not us, but CT centers in general, having to kind of fight to keep those programs in their schools. We'll skip through labor market quickly. And again, stop me anytime if you have questions, if you're looking at it. Digital media was not something that aligned well, so we are putting that on pause for now. All right.
Wait, can you go back one?
Sure.
More? Oh, no, you're fine. It was actually the slide before.
Go ahead. Morgan's controlling.
This is like my English.
Yes.
So the first one is like, how well do you feel our programs address the labor market needs in our region? And it's just like, meets labor market well.
Sure, yes.
Or just like, how well?
So based on, so the answer to that is based on the Vermont Department of Labor. So part of our report is reporting, 2 or 3 years ago, a survey came out about our region and all the areas that have the most jobs in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So they are medical fields.
Yeah.
They are education. They are construction, carpentry. They are heavy equipment and agriculture. They are retail and entrepreneurial. So the top 6 areas of growth in this area are our 6 programs.
Oh, say that.
Yeah.
So what I didn't know, the first time we did this, Holly, I thought this was the needs assessment.
Yeah.
This is the summary of the needs assessment.
Right. But
Where you
even
have
just the question, how well?
This is
We meet well.
So this has sorry.
Sorry.
So in the actual document that we had to submit, there's 64 pages of labor
Of
market
you doing
information
that.
and the analysis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
We had to not throw together, but
I know.
this is something just extra that we had to do on top of the,
got you. For us?
for you.
Oh, okay, so this is only going to us?
Yep.
Okay, there we
We
go.
didn't have that background last time.
Right, I was
Yeah.
like, it's just like,
After we've done the
and
report
I'm like,
and the
but how
analysis, we have
well?
to share it with our boards.
Got you,
So.
okay.
I mean, I appreciate sharing with you, I just,
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you sharing.
okay, well,
Yeah.
so every single program had to do a size, scope, and quality analysis of their program. You're supposed to have at least 8 students in every program. Our enrollment fluctuates a lot, so for example, in the incoming class next year, I believe there's 88 total juniors in Enosburg and Richford combined. Enosburg, I think, has 40 juniors coming in, or 44, Richford has like 42, and the year after that, there's 140. So there's gonna be 140 10th graders
Wow.
and only 88 total 11th graders. And so that impacts our numbers greatly. So we usually get around 50% of Enosburg and Richford students, obviously. So that's kind of the analysis we drew out of that was, yeah, it looks like we're gonna have smaller numbers next year, but it's because, we don't have 13 sending schools sending to us like Rutland or whatnot. So that was kind of the root cause of that. I don't think there's anything we're doing wrong to have that low enrollment for that year. Increased program enrollment, pre-tech. So we have started pre-tech. This was the first year we ran pre-tech. 15 kids. They, for the most part, really enjoyed it. I believe they must have told their friends about it. We had 65 applicants for pre-tech next year. And so we want to serve those kids, so we were able to move Sarah Stebbins full-time pre-tech, and at least for next year, because the Human Services Teacher Prep program is only teaching one program because it's new, there's only going to be 9. That's up to 9, by the way. Students taking that, she has another half-time position available, and so she'll be also doing a pre-tech. And she agreed to do that when we hired her, so I was afraid that might scare her away, but it did not. So we'll have about 15 kids in each section of that. So we have, and hopefully we could not be serving them all, but I think some of them are not. They need to be on a good track for graduation. So. Other things that we make sure we do, each one of our programs, as you know, has a program advisory committee. They meet twice a year, and they do all the work on making sure our curriculum's up to date and the equipment and technology and software is where it needs to be. Keep sliding through. Next one, program of studies. These are questions that if you have some input or answers to, this would be a place where you guys could say, have you thought about this? Have you done that? So I think we've already do this to the best we can. We have as many post-secondary credentials as possible. We have as many IRCs. We really try to incorporate, we're doing a better job in the future incorporating academic, but our technical skills and our employability skills, we make sure are at every level in every class. Our work-based learning is, Levi is doing a tremendous job making connections and getting kids out there. This year more than ever, we've had so many students just come up to me like, thank you. You've changed my life by helping me getting a CDL, helping me to find this job. So it's been a really good hire there. So
That's good.
yeah. Been very lucky in this area. We have, like I said, I've lost 2 people to retirements in the last 2 years, but over the last 6 years, we haven't lost any teachers or have any turnover. Our staff survey data is great, and we don't have any licensure issues. NC, I think Northwest Tech Center is still looking for a building trades instructor. Just happy about that. Where our professional development for us is obviously integrating academics in the work keys curriculum across the board and increasing non-traditional students in enrollment. Those are the two main focus areas that we're looking at. Now next one. And career, with Heather Haddock and Levi, they're both working strongly on creating a system to make sure we know exactly where kids are their junior year and where they want to go and how we can help them get there. I'm pretty sure we're changing our mission to that, because that's what we say all the time. We just get kids to where they want to go, or help them figure out where they want to go. So I don't, fine, we can skip through that, progress. And a lot of this is around a lot of stuff that Michelle Irish is bringing to us, so that kind of happened naturally. We need to figure out how to provide, better equity and reduce barriers and increase access. And a lot of the work that Michelle's bringing to us naturally is falling into place with that. So, again, I think we're doing a hidden curriculum audit our teachers are involved in, but just making sure that all of our promotion materials reflect diversity. Any sort of, all of our things that go out are in languages that need to be in. Our webpage is accessible to a variety of audiences. So, and that's just stuff that we're continuing to improve on and work on. So. And I'm not sure if that might be the last. Yeah. Where our strengths, again, our labor market information is a strength. The fact that we have all available IRCs being attained, and then we're at this point maximizing our college credits, and we'll continue to do so. Nice. And then area growth, non-trad, more work-based learning in our academic proficiencies, fully aligned with state proficiency standards and Portugal graduate. So that, in a nutshell, is what the state needs to know for us to get Perkins money. And so they're really using this as just levers to make sure that the schools are doing what they want them to do. So.
And asking the right questions.
Right.
Yeah.
This is our state, yeah, so.
Nice. Good job.
Questions? Yes.
I don't have a question. I just want to commend you for the collaborative work that your team does, your staff does with us at the high school. Heather Haddock's weekly participation in the SST team has really been educational for members of our team to understand your programs better and for her to understand us. So she's an active member of that every week. And also, thank you for the time and energy that your staff gave to seniors who had to return this week to finish up what they needed to do in order to get a diploma. So that's huge, the amenability and the willingness for your folks to help Cold Hollow, duly enrolled Cold Hollow and Enosburg kids make it to the finish line.
Yeah. Did the one that was there all day today finish? Good.
Great.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Did you have anything else? No, you're good?
That's it.
Okay, thank you so much. And so that brings us to board business. SU, we don't have an SU from last time. Do we?
Figure this out before the meeting.
I know.
I can look back and see what I lost.
Not sure. I felt like we had one before.
Isn't it later on this meeting?
You're talking to the wrong person. It all blends together.
No, you reported on it last time.
I think so. I was gonna say, I felt like it was
SU
SU and then
days before.
board.
Yeah, we were right after.
Yeah, okay. Future agenda items, so our next meeting will be August. We will not be having a July meeting. So do we foresee any agenda items that we need to set in August? Okay. And then I would entertain, no. Oh, we have executive. Oh, good memory. So, and I would entertain a motion to go into executive. Do we need anybody?
I will need, I need to say the request in open, and then I'll need you to go in 2 times.
Okay,
One time, I'm gonna want Jen Hubbard to stay in the room,
okay.
and then the second time, Joseph. And then I don't need any of the other leaders or any other staff if you want to let them loose.
That matter, do you want just like want me to hang out?
Okay, thank you everyone.